Hi everyone, we're back today, Chloe and I. As you can see, we're both in the office practicing some social distancing, but we're happy to be joining you for another tea break. Today, what we're going to talk about is how to help women during this crisis who may be at risk of domestic violence. So, with COVID-19, we all know it's a global pandemic and it's continuing, and more countries, cities and communities are being affected. And so governments are responding as they should, and our government has responded by asking that we keep social distancing measures in place, and they're basically encouraging us all to remain in the home, and are restricting sort of our access to schools, businesses, and that's for a good reason. But because of that, many people experiencing domestic violence may actually be experiencing the worst scenario by being in their home, and they might find themselves trapped with perpetrators of violence. Many of the critical support services and opportunities for a reprieve that people might have had prior to COVID-19 have now been taken away, essentially. So this is really, it's a time that calls on the community to support families and people that may be at risk of abuse. And it's really important that we all get together and we call out behaviour that we think is putting people's lives at risk. So, Chloe, do you think you can tell us a bit about what an abusive relationship might look like during COVID-19 before we sort of go on to discussing the practical tips that may help people to report that abuse?
Yeah, so an abusive relationship during COVID-19, a lot of, characteristics of it will probably remain the same, but with being forced to stay home, there are going to be extra layers, and I guess sometimes the intensity of what women are going through will rise. So there's often many forms that this comes in. There's physical, and this includes hitting or strangling women, keeping them isolated in certain rooms of the house. It's all about choice. So when you yourself aren't able to make choices about where you are, what you're shopping, especially during COVID-19, you want to go to the shops to buy hand sanitizer, cleaning products, all things for the house, which are important during this time. If you're being told no, or that you can't do that, and you feel like you don't have a choice, that is not okay, and something that is essentially creating harm to you and your family. There's financial control as well. With COVID-19, we are seeing more people getting access to money in different ways than before. There's new payments being released that suddenly people in relationships might not have had access to before. In the same scenario, there's people that would have had access to a lot more money, maybe having less access to money, and who's in control of what's coming in and out could be completely flipped. A lot of Centrelink payments are being done online, obviously during this time. Suddenly you might have people knowing your passwords, knowing your usernames in the home, or watching you while you make applications. And it's, if you're being told that you can't do this or someone else does it on your behalf, that's also not okay. So it also comes back to, do you feel like you have choice at the moment around your finances? There's emotional and psychological abuse as well. So it's a very scary time for everyone at the moment, but it's no justification for anyone to blame their stress, their anxiety, or their behaviour on someone else. Everyone is still responsible for their actions. There's supports out there to help with anxiety or feeling a bit lost during this time. They're available to men, women, children, the elderly, everybody. they're the healthy strategies to deal with that, not blaming anyone else that you're living with in the home, or it's actually making them feel guilty for what's going on. Also during this time, if you have children, it could be that partners of the relationship are using it to guilt people into maybe living together, again, for the sake of the children, or making the relationship work. But this does not mean just because we're in a pandemic that you have to make all these choices, that if you don't feel comfortable here making those choices, then it's usually not okay. We always say to our clients, your gut instinct is the strongest thing that you have. If it doesn't feel okay, you don't feel safe, it's usually the right decision to not go ahead with it. There's also sexual harm, and this is often sometimes one of the topics that's the hardest to talk to people about and reach out for help, because there's a lot of shame around it. But during this time, just because you're living under the same roof, no one has a right to your body without your permission, and no one can make you do anything to your body without your permission during this time. Jokes or conversations around this is also not okay. And during this time, talking about you sleeping with other people, or jealousing, or why are you messaging men, that is not okay. It is never okay, but especially not okay just because someone's with you at home all the time. And there's 2 left to go. So then there's spiritual harm as well. This is to do with just because you're home, not letting you practice your cultural, religious beliefs within the home. A lot of places are going online, church services, funerals and other cultural practices have gone online. If you want to have time to access that and put it aside so you can still participate, that is also part of your right, just like how it would be outside the home as well. So it all comes down to choice, you still having the choice to do what you believe and what you want to do as well. And then also with technology, obviously, like you said, we are doing a lot more stuff from home. Technology is so important during this time to access services, support, legal advice if you wanted to come to Coles, for example. The answer is not turn it off if it's too dangerous. Everybody should be able to access technology and feel safe. That is the benchmark, and that's what we stick by. So obviously I've gone through a lot, Amber, about what to notice, whether you're seeing that you feel like yourself are experiencing this or you're watching a friend experience this. What strategies do you think people can do for themselves or for others during this time to maybe feel safe and not be experiencing as much harm?
Yeah, so thanks, Chloe. I think what is really important for everyone to remember is just simply reach out. So now is the time to check in with friends or relatives that may be at risk. You can actually use your own self-isolation as an explanation for why you're calling more often than usual. Familiarise yourself with services that are available. So I want to emphasise, rest assured, specialist DV services remain open and are available for support and advice. So even if a certain service has moved offline, online and moved away from just being physically in the office, they are still operating. For us, for calls, we are here in the office and we are responding to you. That also applies to police. Police are there for you to contact if you suspect something is going on. It's also important to encourage at-risk women to seek help. So if your loved one thinks that they're at risk, you could actually devise a bit of a safety plan with them specifically, or you can try and link them in with a support service to devise that safety plan. So you could agree with a safe word, a sign or a signal, and that sort of tells people or tells a person that they may be at risk of family violence or domestic violence. If there's a current legal matter on foot that you know of with the victim or suspected victim of domestic violence, and that legal matter involves an ex-partner, an abusive ex-partner, make sure that you alert the person that you're helping to legal advice. Alert them to get legal advice or to engage with their current lawyer, just to make sure that they are continuously linked in. Without the right legal advice at the right time, a woman is at risk of losing her home, making safe arrangements for her children, and for potentially accessing a fair split of family assets. So it's really important that people get advice. And I mean, lastly, I would urge everyone to call out abusive behaviour. Domestic violence is more likely to be dismissed or excused during these sorts of times of crisis and emergency. You might notice people just in the community or people you're talking to justifying or minimising behaviour. So, for example, oh, he's just lost his job, he's really stressed. You could point out in those types of conversations that not everyone who loses their jobs will actually perpetrate domestic violence, and not everyone who drinks will become violent. So really calling that out. Yeah, so Chloe, is there anything else you wanted to add about maybe where people can go?
I think at the moment it is more than ever, and we've seen such positive examples of it, of community engagement, even if it's online, everyone looking out for each other, delivering groceries or picking up the phone for support. Yeah. But also during this time, just because domestic violence is happening and we're all at home, it is not an issue that just stays at home. We need to help each other in this space as well. And we're already doing such a good job at it. We can't leave women behind during this time. While we are in lockdown, we are here to support each other. Please contact police. They are aware that at the moment people are experiencing higher rates of domestic violence. They're taking it extremely seriously. Whether it's you that call for yourself or you call on behalf of a friend because you haven't heard maybe the safe word for a day, or you just have a gut feeling that something is not right, do engage with police. Likewise, another service is us. We're here between 8:30 and 5 o'clock for legal advice. If something just isn't sitting right with you and you just want to know options, it doesn't have to be a crisis. It can just be, what is my first step for moving forward, because this is not right and I need something done about it. So 8952 4055 is where you can get in contact with us, or go on our website to find out other information as well. But as always, we'll be keeping in touch. Stay safe during this time, and we look forward to next week.